On Press Perspective today, we touch upon the foreign media coverage of Korea's Cheonggyecheon stream and Korea's Ppang. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Press Perspective. It's Thursday, October 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we start with growing interest in an urban waterway here in capital Seoul by the French media. For more on this, I have Camille Ruiz with French broadcaster Radio France Internationale here in the studio. Camille, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with the pundit's take on the day's topics. Colin, it's great to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Right, Camille, we start with you. Let's begin with details regarding the recent French media coverage of Seoul's Cheonggyecheon stream.
Yes, so recently at the beginning of the month, there was an article from one of the most famous newspapers called Liberation, talked about the Cheonggyecheon stream. It was published in a column dedicated to environmental topics, and this piece covered the river's history, past and present, but maybe we can talk about that later, because since it's a climate issue column, the main topic is ecological, right? So the two authors highlight some very interesting points that I want to share with you. First of all, by removing the motorway, because there was a motorway, car traffic decreased by 80%, so it's very huge. And even more interesting from my point of view, you know, Sunhee, how Korea has been so hot during summer. And near the river and trees lining the water, temperature may drop by 4 to 5 degrees. So I've been working on smart cities and cities of the future, and almost every expert and environmental scientist agree that we need more of this kind of green spaces and trees, nature in general in our city to face climate change. So that kind of success inspired other projects. In fact, I recently bumped into Instagram posts, a picture which comparing past and present of different projects in different cities. For instance, the cyclable path near the Seine in Paris, which was before a road, or Le Capitole, which is the main square in Toulouse in the south of France, which was before a parking lot, and it's now a pedestrian area. And of course, Seoul, Cheonggyecheon, and the before-after in picture is really amazing. I think that everyone can agree to say that it's much prettier and better for citizens.
Right, for sure. And this year, Colin, Seoul celebrates 20 years since the rebirth of its Cheonggyecheon stream as an ecological, as Camille said, and tourist hub. Could you walk us through the stream's past, present, and of course its current popularity?
Yeah, it's been 20 years. I was surprised to see that. When I first visited Korea, it was still pretty new, although it had been a few years and the vegetation had grown in and it had clearly been accepted in Seoul and had already become famous in not just Korea, but across the world. Unlike many urban projects in Seoul, it became renowned everywhere. But one reason why the Cheonggyecheon has worked so well, and why some of the imitations of the Cheonggyecheon later on have been less successful in one element or another, is that it has a long history. It goes back, at least in the form we can envision it on the map, to the Joseon dynasty, when it was even then a very ambitious project. It took a lot of maintenance, took a lot of construction to build this channel through the city, and it was a sewage channel. Let's face it. It was carrying waste. It was not the pleasant place we know today. You wouldn't go to the Cheonggyecheon for a stroll necessarily in the Joseon dynasty. It was very useful. It was good to have there. It was an element of urban civilization in that time and technology that was necessary for building the city up. But later on, it continued to be used that way, and you get to the sort of mid-20th century after the Korean War, and you get the influx of internal domestic immigrants to Seoul, and they all needed places to live. many of them in a somewhat desperate situation moved to the Cheonggyecheon, alongside the Cheonggyecheon, this stinking stream, much like the condition of the Thames in London before the sewer system was installed there. You know, it was not a good place to live. It was built over. It was concreted over in, I believe, 1958. So a road just flat on top of it. And you know, you can see if you watch the Korean film Obaltan, a very famous Korean movie from 1961. There's a bank robbery and a subsequent chase that goes into the Cheonggyecheon, and it's shot there, and it's horrifying. Like it's the kind of place you would see in your nightmares. It's gross, and there's trees growing down there, and the movie heightens it very much. I'll leave it to the prospective viewers to find out how, but it was not an attraction of Seoul. And even less so when it was built over with a freeway overpass in the 1970s. And you see pictures. I never saw the overpass. It was gone by the time I first came here. But in the Cheonggyecheon itself, along the stream, along the walls, they have installed, I believe, photos showing what it was like. And it's, of course, unattractive. I mean, it's a 70s freeway overpass from the sort of developmentalist Park Chung-hee era. And the days of a mayor, Kim Hyun-ok, who was nicknamed Bulldozer, which gives you a sense of his developmental sensibility, I suppose, or perhaps sensitivity to the existing built environment. In any case, that freeway overpass was not that well maintained and was taken down in the early 2000s to build the Cheonggyecheon we know today, which is seen as it was pitched as a restoration of the stream as it was. It's more of a fountain in the shape of the stream. So that gets criticized that it's not natural, but you wouldn't want it to be the way it was in the 1950s of the Joseon dynasty. So it's been, when it was opened in 2005, after a very short construction period by the standards of certainly America, 2 years. It took 2 years to build, and it was seen as a bit artificial at the time, but as I say, the plants hadn't grown in, the wildlife hadn't really fully populated. Now it feels like you're really in at least a semi-natural environment down there in a trench in the middle of downtown Seoul, which is an experience so striking that I take every foreigner who visits me there first, almost. I mean, almost without exception, I take people to see the Cheonggyecheon because it connects to a lot of good places as well, places that I like in Jongno and elsewhere. But everybody's impressed, and they almost always say, especially if they're from the US, you know, why can't we have this in the US? Or more like, we couldn't have this in the US. You know, they see, for example, the bridges, some of which are reconstructed from the Joseon dynasty with actual like carvings and sculptures from that era. You know, they form covered areas where people are picnicking or busking, and you know, no one's doing drugs. There are no obvious homeless people there, no criminals, nothing dangerous, and no graffiti. And it's just impossible to imagine a project like that staying in that condition in any US city, no matter what, no matter how much money was paid into it, no matter how much maintenance was done. It's something it just feels like you can't have in most of the world. So it's a good emblem of, you could say, what's right with Seoul. Though it still gets criticized for this and that reason, I think it shows what's possible here.
And staying right here in Seoul, Camille, one park's beaming of a life-size image of a police officer to deter crime has been making international headlines as well. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it was actually installed last year. It's a hologram of a real police officer wearing uniform and repeating pre-recorded prevention messages, such as "there are CCTVs here." And it works at nights from 7 to 10 p.m. A lot of foreign media outlets, particularly TVs, have been interested in this system, CNN, BBC, The Times. And personally, when I first read about this, I was intrigued and also a little bit skeptical because everyone, after a few seconds, can tell that it's not real, right? But I understand that this kind of project is used to prevent crimes such as drunken assault. So if the person can't realize it's fake because of its condition, it could work. And also in the piece, I read that in behavioral science, using police as a deterrent to reduce crime is about increasing the perceived likelihood of criminals being caught. Not to mention there are real police officers not far from the area. So if a crime is committed, they would join as soon as possible, because obviously the hologram can't really do something, I guess. So after 1 year, now we have some results. The police said that nearby the number of crimes decreased by 22%, it seems to have a bigger impact on impulsive crimes such as drunken disputes. So it looks efficient, but maybe we need more data on it in the future.
Right, for sure, for sure. Colin, what are your takeaways from such policing activities, especially keeping in mind that next week South Korea will be hosting global leaders for the APEC gathering?
Yes, it brought to mind another recent news story about the sort of cleanup of Tapgol Park that's been going on, in the sense that authorities have tried to eliminate alcohol from that park. And if you know that park, it's where a lot of older people, retirees, spend their days engaging in various forms of entertainment of various degrees of legality, and often alcohol is a part of it. So you think, boy, is a Tapgol Park without alcohol really Tapgol Park at all? I mean, we'll see. They'll probably, it will change. I'm sure the cleanup will happen, and it'll become something else culturally going forward, for better or for worse. But with the preparations for APEC, I'm also reminded of what sort of happens in Korea whenever we have an event here where the world comes in, or where the world is seen as being invited in. And there's sometimes a very hasty and sometimes heavy-handed cleanup. If you look at past events such as the Asian Games in '86, or of course the Olympics in '88, or the World Cup in 2002, there's this sense that, okay, we got to clean this place up quickly and thoroughly before people come in and see. It's like inviting somebody into your house. That's how it seems to be regarded. Like, do the vacuuming, get everything in order. We don't want people to see how this has looked before. And it can be too much. It can be too much sometimes, and I think oftentimes these cleanup efforts are directed toward elements that foreigners don't care about that much, or sometimes they like them better before. But in any case, an event like APEC requires a lot of security by its very nature, and requires a lot of infrastructure as well, which, as I understand it, they've been scrambling in Gyeongju to get done. So I think they'll pull it off in Gyeongju. I'm glad it's not in Seoul. I'll put it that way.
Right. Meanwhile, Camille, for those visiting South Korea for the annual APEC gathering next week, one food, and I'm speculating, one food that they might be hoping to taste is Ppang, which earned a spot, that is, on CNN's 50 Best Breads list. Have you tried Ppang?
To be honest, I've never tried.
Oh, you haven't tried?
Yeah, but wait, Sunhee, I can explain.
Okay.
In my country, in France, eggs are associated with something salty. So, except if it's beaten or incorporated into a pastry, something like a pastry, like a whole egg, and like with the white and yolk. I don't know, I never eaten a whole egg in something sweet. Even if I'm curious with food, I usually try food that is completely different from what I know. And not to offend anyone, but from the outside, it doesn't look like, Ppang does not look like a very special snack, not that different. Now I admit that I judge a book on its cover, which is bad. So I will try it. I swear, I'm curious. I love food, so I will try it. And also, one thing I want to add is, in France and in Europe in general, we use red beans for salty recipes. That could be weird from Korea or Japan point of view, but it's true. And at first, when I tried another snack with those red beans, which Ppang does not have red beans, right? But this other snack called bungeoppang, that hot pastry fish shaped with red bean paste inside. I didn't like it when I first tried it, and now I love it. It's one of my favorite scents in autumn and winter in Korea. The texture is also really interesting. It's melting. I love it. So anyway, I wonder why bungeoppang is not on the on the list, on the CNN 50 Best Bread list. But it's another matter, right?
Right. Bungeoppang is also one of my favorite snacks during the winter. Colin, Ppang, it's popular during the winter here in the country. What do you believe are perhaps some of the unique aspects of Korea's street food?
Yes, this time of year, it's always on my mind because we're deep in the fall, we're getting toward winter, and that's really the season for street food in Korea. Somehow, Korean street food is never appetizing in the summer. You don't want to have a steaming plate of tteokbokki, and you don't want to have bungeoppang. I mean, you can't even get it really in the summertime. So this is when you see all the carts come out again. You see the roasters of sweet potatoes, goguma, come out with their old iron ovens, and it all sets the stage for the season to arrive. I like Ppang. see it around often. It's on the street everywhere. But somehow whenever I pass it, I'm never hungry for it. Maybe because I'm not a morning commuter, but this reminds me I should get one. Yes, it wrong foots many Westerners, Europeans of course, but sometimes even Americans, because it looks like just a piece of egg on bread. But they're made together. It's one tray, it's like a mold, and they pour the batter, and then they crack the egg onto the batter. So they're sort of cast together, which is unusual, and then it's sweet, as we've discussed. So the first bite might be surprising because you just don't expect it from the way it looks. It looks like an egg on bread, and that's not something sweet in the Western mind. But this snack, Ppang, was invented outside a university, Incheon's Inhad University in 1984. It's as old as I am, so I feel a bit of a connection with it in that regard. But I do wonder, speaking of Gyeongju as well, that is the home of the birthplace of Ppang, with the 10 won coins, which no longer really get used. The shape of the 10 won coin, they take that, make a big sort of bread filled with cheese. So again, probably an affront to the European sensibility, but I do wonder if they're going to be pushing that in Gyeongju when all the APEC delegates come. I mean, surely someone's going to make some money selling those, if only for novelty value.
Right, the Ppang, right, in Gyeongju. Camille, moving on, the Japanese media recently shed light on the rise in unmarried mothers here in South Korea. What have been some of your own observations here in the country?
First of all, I would like to highlight the fact that if there is unmarried mothers, there are probably unmarried fathers too. So yeah, let's not forget it. And as my job is to report about South Korea to France, in order to cover some social issue, I already had to explain to my country that in South Korea, having children is highly related to marriage, because in France, except for religious reasons or except for a little part of the population, it is not related. So there are people married who don't have children, and people who are not married and have children. It's very common and it's very normal. We also have a different way than just marriage to acknowledge relationships in France. So in Korea, yes, some women don't want to marry. They have multiple reasons, among them a lot of pressure. Social pressure, because marriage is related to having children, moving into a new house, living with a husband. Maybe they don't want that pressure, they don't want children, and it's okay, it's their life, it's their choice. So, because yeah, they're gonna raise that child, they will be pregnant for 9 months, so yeah, it's their life. But I have also noticed that some women actually want to marry, but marriage nowadays is so expensive that some of them just skip that part. Some of the couple just skip that part. And again, that's okay. I think that Korean society has to be more relaxed about showing off, because I've interviewed a lot of people, Korean people, that don't like that kind of ceremony with a lot of guests. Sometimes get that they don't really know that, like acquaintance of their parents, for instance, a lot of expenses also. And I understand that it's part of Korean culture at some point, but maybe people can make compromises, have a more intimate marriage in a cheaper place, and keep it simple, while caring about traditional outfit or gesture, for instance, without being judged. I think it could be great.
Right. And Colin, with regard to unmarried parents then, do you suppose there has been a tangible shift in public perception?
Well, you see it in the media, and to the extent that domestic news covers this sort of thing more. I saw a report just the other day, which was quite long, focused on unmarried mothers, but not in the sense that they're in a relationship or were in a relationship that happened to produce a child but was unstable. They're mothers who chose to have a child by themselves, to do it alone. And this is an idea that I think was introduced to a lot of people in Korea by a celebrity, a Japanese celebrity here, Sayuri, she's known mononymically, and she, I believe, went abroad to a clinic. It's hard to do within Korea. If you're a woman alone trying to have a child, you probably have to go abroad, and she did. And the genetic material came from that country as well, and her child is visibly half Western, of some variety or other. I mean, There's other examples. This news report I saw the other day on NBC, I believe, it was covering another lady who did the same thing, I believe, twice. She went to Denmark, and she has 2 kids who are genetically half Danish. She's raising them alone. I don't know how. I mean, my wife is home with our infant twins now, and I feel bad for her doing just that. I can't imagine a woman doing this by herself. But as they say, as this particular woman said in the segment, you know, it was getting too late. I didn't want to have a sort of geriatric pregnancy, as they're known, and I don't think I can find a boyfriend and get on track to marriage, and let alone child rearing in time. So she felt like the clock was running out, and this was an option. Go to Denmark, fly there, just go on the day, fly back, and then the kid comes 9 months later. And I don't think there's a lot of public outrage about this. It is a curiosity. I mean, it's held up as like a bit of a strange and telling phenomenon. I think, you know, Sayuri, as I say, did something to cause acceptance, though she is regarded, I get the sense, as somewhat eccentric herself, so it fits in, you know, it's something she might do, and so it's then accepted as, oh, hey, if she does it, maybe, you know, she would be on the vanguard. But I think back finally to the US, where I used to live, where I'm from, and 35 or so years ago, there was a big sitcom, Murphy Brown, it was called, about a female television journalist who was single and middle-aged, and one episode, the culmination of one season, in an episode, she has a child by herself. She does this artificial insemination, and it was a huge moment in American culture, and it was a moment that a lot of people didn't like. It was a big controversy, and that was, I believe, in sort of 1992, and that wouldn't cause a furor these days. So clearly, opinions can change about this kind of thing. How they change here, whether they do, how long it takes, remains to be seen. But in the US, that's how it happened.
And plus, Korea, of course, is facing the lowest birth rate in the world.
We can't go one of these segments without emphasizing the birth rate. That's true.
Right, for sure. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this session. Colin, as always, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you.
And Camille, thank you very much for your time and thoughts.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching.